God says, "Stop delaying your yes." The door you keep asking me to open may already be standing in front of you. What if the delay you call wisdom is really fear, wearing the mask of patience? What if the silence you keep calling discernment is only the trembling of a heart that already knows what I have asked? What if you are not waiting for me to speak again? Because I have already spoken. And now, heaven is waiting for your answer. My child, I am not cruel. I do not rush the wounded. I do not break the bruised reed. I do not despise the shaking hands of the one who is trying to obey. But I must tell you the truth. There is a kind of delay that heals, and there is a kind of delay that hides. There is a waiting that is holy, and there is a waiting that slowly becomes disobedience. You have prayed for another sign. You have asked for another confirmation. You have said, "Lord, if this is really you, show me again." And I have been patient with you. I have met you in the night. I have whispered through Scripture. I have stirred your spirit in moments when no one else could see. I have surrounded you with reminders, opened conversations you did not plan, placed a burden in your heart that refuses to leave. And still, you hesitate. But listen to me, I did not ask you to be fearless. I asked you to trust me. There was once a young woman who almost missed her appointed hour. Her name was Esther. But before a crown ever touched her head, she was Hadassah. Before she stood in royal chambers, before servants dressed her in fragrance, before kings and princes knew her name, she was an orphan girl, hidden, raised by Mordecai, carried by a story she did not fully understand. She did not begin with power. She began with loss. And perhaps that is why you know her story so well. Because you too have had seasons where your beginning did not look like destiny. You have had chapters marked by abandonment, confusion, rejection, and questions you never said out loud. You have wondered why I allowed certain doors to close. You have wondered why I moved you from familiar places. You have wondered why I let you be hidden for so long. But I say to you, hidden does not mean forgotten. Esther was hidden before she was revealed. She was prepared before she was positioned. She was moved before she understood the reason. What looked like interruption was placement. What looked like loss was preparation. What looked like a strange and frightening path was the road to an hour that would one day demand courage. My child, you often want the explanation before the obedience. But many times, I give the assignment before I reveal the full map. Esther entered a palace that glittered with beauty. But behind the beauty there was danger. The halls of Persia were not only halls of luxury, they were chambers of power. Silence, politics, and fear. Every curtain had heard secrets. Every stone floor had carried the footsteps of men who could change lives with a word. Every royal decree could become life or death. And there, in the middle of that world, I placed an orphan girl, not by accident. Do not confuse your position with coincidence. Do not confuse your access with luck. Do not confuse the place where I have planted you with something random. I know where you are. I know who surrounds you. I know the rooms you enter. I know the people who listen when you speak. I know the influence you do not think is influence. I know the quiet authority I have placed in your hands. You may be saying, "Lord, I am not Esther. I do not live in a palace. I do not stand before kings. But I say to you, every appointed hour has its own throne room. For some, the throne room is a conversation they have avoided. For some, It is a calling they keep postponing. For some, it is repentance. For some, it is forgiveness. For some, it is the courage to speak truth when silence feels safer. For some, it is leaving what I already told them to leave. For some, it is beginning what I already told them to begin. You are not watching Esther's story from far away. You are standing inside the same mystery, because there comes a time when the hidden season ends, and obedience begins to knock. Esther did not know, at first, why she had been brought into the kingdom. She did not see the full shadow rising behind the curtains. She did not know that a man named Haman would become a weapon of hatred against her people. She did not know that a decree would be written. She did not know that the cries of her people would rise through the streets while she sat inside a palace. But I knew. I saw the decree before it was sealed. I saw the enemy's pride before it had a platform. I saw the mourning before the sackcloth was worn. I saw Mordecai at the gate. I saw Esther in the palace. I saw the invisible line connecting her position to her people's deliverance. And I see the line in your life too. You may not understand why I gave you that testimony. You may not understand why you survived what should have destroyed you. You may not understand why your heart is burdened for certain people. Certains plaies. Certain wounds. Certains messages. But I do. The pain you wanted me to erase, I may use as a key. The delay you thought disqualified you, I may use as wisdom. The rejection that made you feel unseen, I may use to make you tender enough to obey without pride. Esther's crown was beautiful, but it was not the point. The palace was impressive, but it was not the purpose. The favor she received was real. But favor is never just decoration. Favor is responsibility wrapped in grace. And this is where many of my children tremble. They want favor to feel like comfort. They want promotion to feel like proof that the battle is over. They want the open door to mean they will never again have to risk anything. But sometimes the very door I open will lead you to the place where your obedience costs you something. That does not mean I have abandoned you. It means I have trusted you with a moment. My child, hear me clearly. I do not call you because you are strong enough. I call you because I am faithful enough. I do not place you in the hour because you have no fear. I place you there because my presence is greater than your fear. Esther almost delayed. Esther almost stayed silent. Esther almost allowed the palace to become a hiding place. And before this story is over, you will see why that silence would have been dangerous. Not because my plan was weak, but because her part in it was precious. And then the crisis came. The hidden shadow stepped into the open. A man named Haman rose in the empire. And with him came a darkness Esther could not ignore forever. Hatred put on royal clothing. Pride found a throne near power. A private offense became a public decree. A wounded ego became a weapon against an entire people. My child, this is how the enemy often works. He does not always begin with noise. Sometimes he begins with resentment. Sometimes he begins with a whisper. Sometimes he begins with one man's pride. One hidden bitterness. One secret hatred that grows until it demands blood. Obedience. And worship. Haman wanted more than respect. He wanted submission. He wanted Mordecai to bow. And when Mordecai would not bow, Haman's anger did not remain small. It widened. It spread. It became a decree sealed with royal authority. And suddenly, the story changed. The palace that had seemed beautiful became terrifying. The crown that had seemed like favor now stood beside a death sentence. The corridors of Persia carried a cold message. The ink dried. The seal was pressed. The order went out, and outside the palace, my people mourned. Scripture says there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting, weeping, and wailing. Many lay in sackcloth and ashes. The streets that once carried ordinary footsteps now carried grief. Mothers heard the decree. Fathers held their children closer. Elders looked toward the sky. A nation felt the shadow of destruction move over them, and Esther was inside the palace. Do you see the tension? Outside, there was crying. Inside, there was comfort. Outside, sackcloth. Inside, royal garments. Outside, ashes. Inside, perfume. Outside, a people facing death. Inside, a queen who had not yet understood why she had been given access. My child, this is the moment when favor becomes frightening. This is the moment when a blessing asks a question. This is the moment when the thing you prayed for becomes the place where obedience is required. You asked me for influence. But did you think influence would never require courage? You asked me for open doors. But did you think open doors would never lead to responsibility? You asked me to use your life. But did you think being used would always feel safe? The crown was not for comfort. It was for assignment. Esther had to learn this. And so do you. There are places I have put you that are not merely for your promotion. There are rooms you enter, conversations you hear, burdens you carry, and relationships you have been given that are tied to something larger than your own comfort. You may have thought you were simply surviving. You may have thought you were simply working, raising children, healing from pain, rebuilding your life, or trying to make it through another day. But I say to you, there may be an assignment hidden inside your ordinary place. There may be a divine responsibility wrapped inside the very access you take for granted. Mordecai understood what Esther could not yet see. He sent word to her, and his message carried both warning and mystery. He told her not to imagine that she would escape in the king's palace more than all the Jews. If she remained silent at that time, relief and deliverance would arise for the Jews from another place. But she and her father's house would perish. And then came the sentence that still trembles through the ages. Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? For such a time as this. Not for vanity. Not for comfort. Not for escape. Not for applause. For this hour. For this crisis. For this moment when silence would be easier, but obedience would be holy. My child, hear me clearly. I am not asking you to carry the whole world. I am not asking you to become the Savior. I alone am God. I alone hold deliverance. I alone turn the heart of kings. I alone command the unseen hosts. I alone know the end from the beginning. But I do invite my children into my work, and that is both mercy and warning. Mordecai's words were not only encouragement, they were a holy alarm. He was saying, Esther, do not think your palace can protect you from the call of God. Do not think your comfort can exempt you from obedience. Do not think your silence is neutral. Silence is not always neutral. Sometimes silence protects wisdom, but sometimes silence protects fear. Sometimes silence is patience, but sometimes silence is surrender to the wrong kingdom. Sometimes silence is waiting on me, but sometimes silence is refusing to answer me. This is why your delay matters. This is why your yes matters. You may think your hesitation affects only you, But there are people tied to your obedience. There are prayers connected to your courage. There are doors that may open for others when you finally stop hiding. There are chains that may break when you finally speak. There are families, ministries, friendships, and wounded hearts that may be strengthened by the very testimony you keep burying. Do not despise the weight of your yes. Do not say, "Someone else can do it." When I have been stirring your heart, do not say, "I am not ready." When I have already been preparing you in hidden places, do not say, "I am too small." When Esther also began as an orphan, do not say, "I am too afraid." When courage is not the absence of fear, but obedience in my presence, in the unseen realm. The moment was not small. Heaven was watching, not because my plan was uncertain, but because Esther's participation was precious. Angels do not tremble because the enemy is strong. They stand in awe because obedience opens doors that fear tried to keep shut. And there, in the palace, Esther faced the question every called person must face. Will I protect my comfort? Or will I obey my God? Will I hide behind the walls that were meant to position me? Will I delay until the hour passes? Will I call my fear wisdom? My hesitation discernment? My disobedience caution? My child, I know the cost of your yes. I know the risk that keeps you awake. I know the possible rejection. I know the trembling in your chest. I know the voice that says, "What if I step out and nothing happens? What if I obey and lose everything? What if I speak and they do not understand?" But I also know what fear never tells you. Fear only shows you the cost of obedience. It never shows you the cost of delay. Esther could see the danger of approaching the king, but she also had to see the danger of remaining silent. And now the story becomes even more intense, because Esther did not immediately run into the throne room. First, she had to face the fear within her own soul. Esther had a reason to be afraid. Do not rush past that. Do not make her courage cheap by pretending her fear was small. She was not being dramatic. She was not exaggerating. She was not hiding from an imaginary danger. She knew the law of the palace. She knew what happened to anyone who approached the king without being called. There was one law for all. Man or woman, servant or noble, stranger or queen. If the king did not hold out the golden scepter, that person could die, and Esther had not been called to come to the king for 30 days. 30 days of silence, 30 days of distance, 30 days of not knowing whether favor still rested on her. My child, can you feel the pressure in that silence? It is one thing to obey when the door is already open. It is another thing to obey when the door is guarded by fear. It is one thing to say yes when everyone applauds. It is another thing to say yes when your own future feels uncertain. It is one thing to step forward when the room welcomes you. It is another thing to step forward when the room may reject you. Esther was standing between two dangers. If she went in, she could perish. If she stayed silent, her people could perish. And this is where many of my children become trapped. They think fear means they are not called. They think trembling means they are not ready. They think uncertainty means I have not spoken. But I say to you, sometimes the very place where you tremble is the place where your yes becomes holy. Fear does not cancel the assignment. Fear reveals how deeply you need me in it. Esther's first response was not boldness. Her first response was the truth of her limitation. She sent word back to Mordecai, explaining the law, explaining the danger, explaining that she had not been called. And I did not despise her honesty. I do not despise yours either. You can tell me you are afraid. You can tell me your hands are shaking. You can tell me that the thing I am asking of you feels too large, too risky, too exposed, too painful. You do not need to perform strength in my presence. I already see the trembling beneath your words, but listen carefully. Honesty is a doorway. It must not become a prison. You may begin by saying, Lord, I am afraid, but you must not build a house there. You may begin by saying, Lord, I do not know how, but you must not make uncertainty your altar. You may begin by saying, Lord, what if I fail? But you must not let that question become louder than my command. There is a kind of fear that brings you to prayer, and there is a kind of fear that keeps you from obedience. One is surrendered. The other is disguised rebellion. One runs into my presence. The other uses spiritual words to avoid the cross of yes. And I am speaking now to the one who has learned to make delay sound holy. You say, I am waiting for peace, but sometimes peace comes after obedience, not before it. You say, I am waiting for clarity, but sometimes clarity comes as you walk, not while you stand still. You say, I am waiting for the right time, but sometimes the right time is revealed by the burden that will not leave you. You say, I am waiting until I feel ready. But my child, if you wait until fear disappears, you may wait past the hour I appointed. This is the warning hidden inside Esther's story. She almost had every reason to delay. She could have said, the law is against me. She could have said, the king has not called me. She could have said, Mordecai does not understand the palace. She could have said, someone else will have to speak. She could have said, I need more time. And every reason would have sounded reasonable. But obedience is not always unreasonable because it is reckless. Sometimes obedience looks unreasonable because it is deeper than self-preservation. Do you know what makes delay so dangerous? It rarely feels evil. It feels careful. It feels mature. It feels responsible. It feels like protecting yourself from pain. But when I have spoken, delay can slowly become a room where obedience dies, and the room grows quiet. At first, you still feel the conviction. Then you explain it away. Then you bury it under activity. Then you ask me to confirm what I have already confirmed. Then weeks pass. Months pass. The burden becomes quieter. Not because I changed my mind, but because you trained your heart to turn down the volume. My child, do not let your heart become skilled at resisting me. I am gentle, but I am holy. I am patient, but I am not mocked. I am kind, but my kindness is not permission to keep postponing what I have made clear. There are moments when I whisper. There are moments when I wait. And there are moments when I send a Mordecai to your gate with a sentence you cannot escape. Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? That sentence was not merely information. It was a blade of truth cutting through the fog of fear. It did not shame Esther. It awakened her. It did not say, you are powerful enough. It said, you are positioned, and there is a difference. Power says, I can do this. Position says, God has brought me here. Power leans on ability. Position leans on providence. Power asks, am I strong enough? Position asks, was I placed here by God? That is why your yes cannot be measured only by your confidence. Your yes must be measured by the one who positioned you. Esther could not control the king's heart. She could not control the law. She could not control Haman's hatred. She could not control the outcome of the throne room, but she could control one thing. She could stop hiding, and before she entered the room, she did something powerful. She called for a fast. She told Mordecai to gather all the Jews found in Susa and fast for her. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. She and her attendants would fast as well. And then she said the words that rose from the ashes of fear into the fire of surrender. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish, my child. This was not despair. This was not hopelessness. This was not a woman giving up on life. This was surrender, becoming stronger than fear. If I perish, I perish. Not because death had won, but because obedience had become more important than safety. Do you understand the mystery? Esther did not become fearless before she said yes. She said yes, while fear was still present. She did not wait for every possible outcome to be secured. She entered the secret place first. And there, her trembling became consecrated. For 3 days, the palace continued. The empire continued. Haman continued. The decree continued. The danger continued. But something unseen had shifted. While the enemy believed the story was moving toward destruction, my servant was being strengthened in the hidden place. While the palace lamps burned through the night, a queen was laying down her fear before me. While heaven watched, the yes that had been delayed became a yes that could no longer be held back. And I say to you now, before you step into your throne room, come into the secret place. Do not run ahead in panic. Do not obey from pride. Do not speak just to prove you are brave. Bring me your fear first. Fast. If I call you to fast, pray. Open the scriptures. Let my word separate fear from wisdom. Let my spirit steady your breath. Let your soul remember that your times are in my hand, because your yes does not become powerful because you feel nothing. Your yes becomes powerful when you trust me while trembling. And so Esther entered the hidden place before she entered the throne room. This is where many people misunderstand obedience. They think obedience begins when the public moment begins. They think the great moment is when the door opens, when the king sees her, when the golden scepter is lifted, when the palace holds its breath and history turns. But I say to you, the real battle often begins before anyone sees you move. The yes is born in secret. It is born when no one is clapping. It is born when the tears fall quietly. It is born when you kneel with a trembling heart and say, Lord, I do not know what will happen, but I know I cannot keep running from what you have asked. That is where Esther's delayed yes became a surrendered yes. For 3 days, she did not eat. For 3 days, she did not drink. For 3 days, she let the fear speak, and then she let faith answer. For 3 days, she stood in the gap between death and deliverance, between silence and obedience, between the palace and the people. And during those 3 days, the world did not stop. The decree was still real. The danger was still real. Haman was still breathing threats. The king was still seated in power. The law of Persia had not changed. But my child, the unseen realm had already begun to move. There are moments when nothing changes on the surface, but everything begins to shift beneath it. There are moments when the enemy still looks confident, but heaven has already marked the hour of his exposure. There are moments when the door still looks closed, but my hand is already on the hinge. Do not despise the hidden place. Do not despise the days when all you can do is pray. Do not despise the tears that fall before the step of obedience. I have received prayers that no one heard. I have counted fasts that no one applauded. I have seen the shaking hands that still reached for faith. I have watched my children whisper yes in rooms where no one knew a battle was being won. And I tell you this, a yes, whispered before me, can shake what the enemy built in pride. Esther's 3 days were not wasted. They were holy. They were preparation, purification, strengthening. Her heart had to be brought under the weight of the assignment. Her fear had to be placed beneath my sovereignty. Her life had to be surrendered before her feet could move. Because if you enter your throne room still ruled by panic, you may speak too soon. If you enter ruled by pride, you may speak too harshly. If you enter ruled by bitterness, you may misrepresent my heart. But when you enter after the secret place, your obedience carries a different fragrance. You are not there to prove yourself. You are there because I sent you. You are not there to manipulate the room. You are there to follow me. You are not there because you know every outcome. You are there because you know my voice. And when the appointed hour came, Esther put on her royal robes. Do not miss that. She did not walk in, clothed in panic. She did not walk in dressed in despair. She put on what matched her position. She remembered where she stood. She stepped into the identity that had been given to her. Not because she trusted the palace, but because she trusted the God who had placed her there. My child, there are times when obedience will require you to put on what fear told you to take off. Put on courage. Put on truth. Put on humility. Put on the calling I gave you. Put on the strength that does not come from self-confidence, but from surrender. Esther stood in the inner court of the king's palace. The air must have felt heavy. Every step carried risk. Every breath could have been her last. The law stood against her. Protocol stood against her. Silence would have been safer for her body, but obedience was safer for her soul. And then the king saw her. One moment, one glance, one impossible threshold. The story narrowed to a single point. Would the scepter rise? My child, there are moments when obedience feels like standing still while your whole future waits for an answer. You have done what I asked. You have stepped forward. You have stopped delaying. And now everything inside you says, Lord, what happens next? This is where faith must let go of control. Esther could step into the court, but she could not force the king's hand. She could obey, but she could not manufacture favor. She could present herself, but she could not command the outcome. And this is true for you. You can obey. You can speak. You can forgive. You can begin. You can surrender. You can walk away from what is destroying you. You can say yes to the calling. You can send the message. You can step into the room. But you cannot control every heart, every response, every consequence, every timeline. That is not your burden. Your burden is obedience. The outcome belongs to me. And then, in the story of Esther, the golden scepter was extended. Mercy reached toward her. Favor answered fear. The door that could have meant death became the doorway into deliverance. And I want you to hear this carefully. Esther did not see the scepter while she was still delaying. She saw it after she stepped forward. There are some graces you will not see until you obey. There are some doors that will not look open until your foot moves. There are some confirmations that come on the other side of, yes. This does not mean every step will be easy. It does not mean every person will understand. It does not mean the path will be free of resistance. Esther's danger did not end the moment the scepter rose. Haman was still there. The decree was still written. The enemy's plan was still moving. But the first door had opened. And once obedience opened the first door, wisdom began to guide the next step. Esther did not shout everything at once. She did not panic. She did not expose Haman in haste. She invited the king and Haman to a banquet, and then another. Why? Because obedience is not only courage. Obedience is timing. There are things I call you to say, and there is a way I call you to say them. There are doors I open, and there is wisdom needed after they open. There are enemies whose pride becomes their own trap when my children refuse to move in panic. Haman thought he was being honored, but he was being positioned for exposure. He thought the banquet was proof of his greatness, but the table he entered became the place where his hidden darkness would be revealed. This is the divine reversal. Fear never saw coming. The enemy thought Esther's delay would become silence, but her delay became fasting. Her fasting became surrender. Her surrender became courage. Her courage became access. Her access became exposure. And exposure became deliverance. My child, this is what I can do with one surrendered, yes. One surrendered, yes, can turn a hidden girl into a witness of deliverance. One surrendered yes can bring light into a room that was ruled by fear. One surrendered yes can expose what pride thought it had successfully buried. One surrendered yes can open a door that delay kept staring at from a distance. Esther stepped forward, and the story began to turn. But do not misunderstand the turning. It did not happen all at once. This is important for you, my child, because sometimes you think obedience has failed if everything does not change immediately. You say yes, and the problem is still there. You step forward, and the enemy is still loud. You pray, and the pressure does not instantly disappear. You obey, and yet the decree still seems written. The danger still seems real. The mountain still stands in front of you. But I say to you, do not measure the power of your yes by what you see in the first moment after you obey. Esther received favor, but Haman was still alive. Esther touched the scepter, but the decree had not yet been reversed. Esther entered the room, but the full deliverance had not yet manifested. Still, something had changed. The silence was broken. The hidden one had stepped into the open. The queen who almost delayed had become the voice her people needed. And once obedience breaks silence, the atmosphere begins to shift. The king asked Esther what she wanted. Even to half the kingdom, it would be given to her. But Esther did not rush. She did not pour out everything in panic. She did not let the pressure of the moment make her careless. She invited the king and Haman to a banquet. The enemy walked into the banquet smiling. He did not know that pride can be blindfolded by its own applause. Haman thought proximity to Esther meant honor. He thought being invited meant he was rising higher. He thought the table was a celebration of his greatness. But my child, there are tables. The enemy enters thinking he will be crowned, when in truth, he is being brought into the light. This is the mystery of divine reversal. I can use the very path the enemy celebrates as the road to his exposure. I can let arrogance climb high enough that its fall becomes undeniable. I can allow hidden schemes to sit at the same table as truth, until the moment comes when truth speaks and the whole room changes. Esther waited for the right moment, not because she was afraid now, but because wisdom had taken the place of panic. That is what the secret place does. It does not always remove the danger, but it changes the way you move in the danger. It does not always silence every threat, but it teaches you not to be ruled by the threat. It does not always make the room less intimidating, but it reminds you that I am Lord over the room. The first banquet passed. Then came another invitation, and Haman's pride grew darker. He left joyful and glad of heart. But when he saw Mordecai, and Mordecai would not rise or tremble before him. His joy turned again into rage. My child, hatred is never satisfied for long. Pride can sit at a royal table and still be tormented by one righteous man who refuses to bow. So Haman prepared a place of destruction for Mordecai. He believed he was writing the final chapter, but he did not know that heaven was turning the page. That night, the king could not sleep. Do you hear the mystery? A sleepless night became a hinge of deliverance. No trumpet sounded. No army arrived. No obvious miracle split the sky. The king simply could not sleep. And because he could not sleep, records were read. And because records were read, Mordecai's forgotten act of loyalty was remembered. And because Mordecai was remembered, Haman's plan began to collapse before he even understood. The ground beneath him was moving. My child, never underestimate what I can do through what appears small. A sleepless night, a forgotten record, a delayed reward, a question asked at the right time, a proud man walking into the court too early, a king asking, what should be done for the man whom the king delights to honor? Haman thought the honor was for him, but it was for Mordecai. This was the beginning of the reversal. The man who prepared humiliation for the righteous was commanded to publicly honor the very one he despised. The enemy who wanted Mordecai lowered had to lead him through the city in honor. The mouth that carried pride had to announce dignity over the one he hated. Do you see how I work? I do not need the enemy's permission to reverse a story. I do not need the palace to understand my timing. I do not need your fear to disappear before I begin moving. I was working while Esther fasted. I was working while she trembled. I was working while Haman plotted. I was working while Mordecai waited. I was working when the king could not sleep. And I have been working in your life too. You thought nothing was happening because nothing was obvious. You thought the delay meant I had forgotten. You thought the silence meant the enemy was winning. But some of my greatest turns begin in hidden places, in small disturbances, in quiet, interruption, in details no one can explain. Then came the second banquet. The room that once seemed controlled by power became a courtroom of truth. The king asked again what Esther desired. And this time, the appointed hour had fully arrived. Esther spoke. She did not speak as a frightened orphan, hiding behind a crown. She spoke as a woman who had surrendered her life. She asked for her life and for the life of her people. She revealed that they had been sold to be destroyed. She pulled the hidden thing into the light. She named the adversary, Haman. The room changed. The man who had entered the banquet in confidence was suddenly exposed. The plot that had moved through secret channels now stood uncovered before the king. The enemy who had seemed untouchable was no longer hidden. My child, this is why I am calling you to stop delaying your yes. There are things that remain hidden until obedience speaks. There are lies that keep breathing until truth stands up. There are cycles that continue until someone surrendered, says, enough. There are assignments that wait, not for your perfection, but for your obedience. Esther did not save her people because she was flawless. She stepped into her hour because she surrendered. The deliverance belonged to me, but her yes mattered. Her courage became part of the story. Her voice became part of the reversal. Her obedience became a door through which many others walked into mercy. And this is the part you must not miss. Esther thought she was risking everything by saying yes. But if she had kept delaying, she could have lost the very thing she was trying to protect. Fear promises safety, but it often builds a prison. Delay promises control, but it often steals the hour. Silence promise protection. But it can become agreement with what I called you to confront. So I ask you again, My child, what yes have you been delaying? What yes have you buried under explanations? Is it the call to forgive someone you keep replaying in your mind? Is it the step of obedience you keep postponing because it will cost you comfort? Is it the truth you need to speak? But fear has trained your mouth to stay closed. Is it the gift I placed in you? The testimony I healed you through? The burden I gave you? The ministry I whispered over you? The door I opened? The relationship I asked you to surrender? The new beginning I placed before you? You keep saying, Lord, when the time is right. But I am asking you, what if this is the time? You keep saying, Lord, when I feel stronger. But I am saying my strength is made perfect in weakness. You keep saying, Lord, when I am not afraid. But I am saying I did not call you because you were fearless. I called you because I am with you. You keep saying, Lord, show me one more sign. But I am saying, how many times must I confirm what I have already made clear? My child, this is not condemnation. This is mercy. A warning from me is not rejection. A warning from me is love reaching before the door closes. A holy alarm is not my anger against you. It is my kindness calling you back into alignment before fear steals what obedience was meant to release. Esther almost missed her appointed hour, not because she was wicked, not because she hated her people, not because she lacked value. She almost missed it because she was afraid. And fear can make even a chosen person hesitate. But she did not let fear have the final word. She brought her fear into fasting. She let the hidden place strengthen her. She stepped into the room. She received favor. She waited with wisdom. She spoke at the appointed moment. And when she spoke, the story turned. The enemy was exposed. The hidden plot was uncovered. The mourning of the people became the beginning of deliverance. And the orphan girl who once seemed like a small part of a massive empire became a witness that I can place one surrendered person in the right position at the right time for a purpose far greater than they understand. Now hear the deeper mystery. If Esther had remained silent, I would still have been God. My covenant would not have failed. My power would not have weakened. My faithfulness would not have disappeared. Deliverance would have arisen from another place. This is the part that should both comfort you and awaken you. My plan is not fragile, but your part is precious. I am not dependent on your obedience in the way a helpless man depends on another. I am sovereign. Iamhoi. I am the one who makes a way in the sea, a path through mighty waters. I can raise up another voice. I can open another door. I can move through another vessel. But my child, why would you want someone else to live the yes, I prepared for you? Why would you want fear to write you out of a chapter grace invited you into? Why would you want to watch from a distance while another heart steps into the place where I called your name? This is not about striving. This is not about proving yourself. This is not about becoming the hero. This is about surrender. Your appointed hour is not waiting for your perfection. It is waiting for your obedience. The door is not asking you to be enough. It is asking you to trust that I am. The room is not asking you to control the outcome. It is asking you to enter with me. The assignment is not asking you to carry the weight alone. It is asking you to stop calling fear wisdom and start calling my voice, Lord. So today, I am calling you out of delay, out of holy-sounding excuses, out of endless confirmation, out of paralysis, out of hiding, out of the palace walls you have mistaken for safety. Say yes. Say yes while your voice shakes. Say yes while your hands tremble. Say yes before you know every outcome. Say yes after you have prayed. Say yes after you have surrendered. Say yes not because the enemy is small, but because your God is faithful. And when you step forward, you may discover what Esther discovered. The favor was already prepared. The scepter was already in the king's hand. The hidden details were already moving. The sleepless night was already appointed. The forgotten record was already waiting to be opened. The enemy's pride was already becoming his own trap. And the hour you feared was not the hour of your destruction. It was the hour of your assignment. So let this be your prayer. Lord, give me the courage of Esther. Teach me to stop delaying my yes. Teach me to stop hiding behind fear. Teach me to recognize the difference between holy waiting and quiet disobedience. If you have brought me here for such a time as this, let my answer be yes, even if I tremble. Yes, even if I do not understand everything. Yes, even if the room feels too large. Yes, even if the door looks dangerous. Yes, even if I must lay down comfort. Yes, because my times are in your hand. My life is in your hand. My calling is in your hand. And if you are with me, I will not let fear have the final word. My child, stop delaying your yes. Your appointed hour may be closer than you think. And the door you keep praying for may already be open. If this word found you in your appointed hour, comment amen. Tell us where you are watching from. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs courage to say yes. In the next message, we will uncover why God sometimes hides his name in a story, but leaves his fingerprints everywhere.